Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. It's Ryan and Cody out in the garage. We are tinkering a little bit more with the mini truck and also doing a little bit of what prep?
Getting ready to go to Riverside next weekend, dude, in Chattanooga.
So doing a little Riverside prep. Cody's got some new tires mounted up. He's gonna throw those on, adjust the coilovers just a little bit, get this thing sitting right. I need to do that to my car, but what I really want to focus on is getting this thing buttoned up. So this is kind of where we left off at. Raised the truck up just a little bit so it was a little bit more mobile. Still sitting pretty good, a lot lower than it was, and we still even have bigger wheels and tires than what was on it. This side is what it used to look like. I know it doesn't look like a ton of a difference, but this side is definitely a lot higher. If you were to mount that wheel onto here, you'd see the difference. But compared to what I used to have, which I thought was kind of cool, to what we've got going on now is a huge difference, So today, I think the goal is to try to mock up some lower control arms. We were going to swap the Tiger Truck lower control arms and ball joints onto the truck. It proved to be a little bit more difficult. Also a little bit pricey. The control arms were almost $70 a piece. And for me to cut those up and try to make them work onto here, it just didn't seem as good of an option. And I've got another option that I'm going to show you, and we're going to try it out. So if you look right here, this is my solution for the lower ball joints. I know what you're thinking. This is a turnbuckle for, looks like a tractor. But it's got a heim joint. It's rated at a pretty severe amount of weight. It's got a lock nut, and this body I can lop in half. And as you can see, I've got some spacers, some washers, a nice grade 8 bolt, and some lock nuts. So the idea here is attach this to the lower control arm, put this bolt through the control arm, make the knuckle have a stud, and then bolt it up. And then I'll have camber adjustment on the lower control arm. That's the idea. Now, making the idea a reality, that's another thing. We've got to test that out, measure a few things, cut a few things, and hopefully we get it right. Because we don't really have many shots at this, so we're gonna start cutting, I guess. So to give you a little bit more visual before we dive right into it, I've got these laid out here. This is the turnbuckle that I got from the tractor store, and this is the lower off the van. The van lower and the truck lower are two different things. They look a little bit differently. The reason we're having to do this is because the knuckle off of the van, this is what the ball joint looks like. As you can see, it's not threaded at the top. It uses this point right here. The knuckle has a spot where this bolts through and pinches. And there's not enough room to get a nut on top of my factory van lower to tighten it down. It hits the knuckle before you can turn it with a wrench. So that was going to be an issue. We tried seeing if we could get replacement ball joints, but they sell them as a whole lower. Our second thought there before going to a full custom lower was to take and section this control arm, a new one obviously with good ball joints, and attach it to the truck's lower control arm here by welding it. Only problem with that is this joint would probably get hot and melt all the stuff out of it. So there's actually plastic cups and things like that in here that you do not want to get hot. They'll melt. We don't want to do that. I figured the next best option would be to get a heim joint and some kind of adjuster and weld that to the lower at this portion and box it all in so it's nice and strong. So here we have our control arms. This one came off the van. So this one has the matching ball joint to the knuckle that is on the truck now. This is the truck's original lower control arm and ball joint. That'll show you exactly why we can't use it. We're getting ready to cut this outer section off of it. We're going to cut as closely as we can around this ball joint so that we do not take away material here, because if you look, the tension rod mounts here. We do not want to go any further in this way, cutting material off, so that we have maximum amount to work with here to weld our turnbuckle piece to that our heim joint will sit in and adjust from. The turnbuckle where the heim sits is going to be somewhere around in here. All right, so here's our lower control arm cut. Cody, you want to give us a reenactment since the memory card corrupted?
All right, so it's in here like that, and then I took this thing and I went lop, and then I took it out and flipped it over. I made a cut across the top, trying to salvage as much as the control arm as possible and still remove the ball joint. So like the more material that's in there gives us more material to work with, but we knew we had to get the ball joint out of there. So now that it's gone, we're going to cut the turnbuckle in half so we have the maximum amount of it to apply to the maximum amount of the factory control arm.
Cool, and we'll record that with a
Hopefully,
good,
yeah, successfully.
with a good SD card.
I think we got it figured out where to put it.
Looks like we're going to go right there with it, and that'll give us a adjustment outwards here.
And enough clearance under there for the nut for the tension rod.
Yeah, tension rod. So we'll have inward adjustment to get us close to factory. I think we got to notch this just a little bit because it is hitting, but no issue there.
Like it.
So if you'll notice, this is our hardware that we've got for this. We've got a spacer, 2 washers, nut and a bolt, grade 8 obviously. The plan originally in my brain before looking at it when I went to go buy the turnbuckle, I took the lower control arm with me, kind of got a pretty close size to this ball joint because I knew that's what size my spindle was. So we got a 5/8 bolt, is about the closest I could get. Well, upon coming back, I noticed that this was not going to fit through there, and originally I had planned on dropping it down through the top, but you can't get that in there.
Not doing it.
So what I plan on doing is grinding the head of this off and then tapering the shank a little bit, and we're going to hammer it up through the bottom and get it about a little more than flush, similar to how it would be with the head sticking up, and we're going to weld everything in here. And then put a little weld on it here, here, and around this side. We don't want to get anything on the bottom because that's where our spacers and everything are going to have to
I
ride.
want a flat mountain surface.
Yeah, and the bottom of this knuckle is pretty well flush, so we'll clean that up and flatten it out the rest of the way before we put this in there and weld it. But I'm going to grind this now. So I went ahead and cleaned this up some more, and we ground this down, kind of cleaned up our surface down there where our washers are going to sit and around where it's going to get welded before we put it in, because it'll be a pain in the ass to get to afterwards. Let's see if it fits. So what we're wanting is it to come up maybe an 1/8 inch to a 1/4 inch above the hole there, so we can kind of rosebud weld the top of it.
Okay.
Now the real question is, the wheel, will it clear? So that'll be fun to check.
Oh, we got miles.
Yeah, let me get the studs in there. So yeah, there's plenty of room. And this is a 14-inch wheel. So we can run 14, we could probably run a 13 or a 12 on here with no issues in that configuration. Back again, we're having a whole lot of camera issues today, but like I was saying, we're gonna have plenty of clearance for the wheels, whether we wanna run 12s, 13s, 14s, and obviously going bigger than that, there's no issue. Now what we're going to do is I'm just going to weld a couple tacks in here, enough to get the knuckle hot enough for it to adhere to this stud, and we'll test it. Like I said, I'm gonna weld all this stuff up at the shop with the big welder, since we gotta get this stuff pretty hot. So now's the time, we're gonna put this on there, see how everything fits.
Now hopefully this will correct the wheel not being in the center of the wheel arch too. We did some measuring, but to make sure the wheel's in the center of the fender well, because the knuckles were made a little bit different, which pushed the wheel backwards some. Not a whole lot, but
Enough to matter.
yes.
Visually. To correct that, we place the heim forward on the control arm instead of center. And when we box everything in, it should act just like it needs to. But yeah,
It's gonna be sick, dude.
I love it.
I love this stance you got.
You like it?
Yeah, them Polish boys, they like that.
Yeah. Question is it Polish or the Slav squad? I've heard two.
They do it in Poland, but like, I don't know.
So now that that's tight.
You got all the adjustment.
Yeah, I mean the ball joint could be out here. That's plenty of thread for it to hold
Do
on.
its job.
That would be ridiculous. We don't need that much camber, but a little bit would be nice.
And the way we measured it out, so with the heim joint ran all the way in, is pretty close to factory.
Cool. It looks crazy, dude. And that's not even all the way out.
No. Now is that bottomed out? Is that maxed out in?
No, that's leaving enough room for the lock nut.
So you've added length right there.
I've added length. Yeah, I've added probably maybe ½ an inch.
Sick. And look at the wheel and the wheel arch.
Yes, that's a ton.
It was like probably, I don't know, a full inch back, would
Yeah.
you say?
Yeah, I'd say probably about that much.
Before we moved the ball joint location?
And honestly, I would rather have it a little further forward in the wheel well than back. Just
I mean, ideally, I think center's where it needs to be.
Yeah, for
This
sure.
wheel well is like a really funky shape,
Yeah,
but
I think we're pretty close to true center here.
that's good.
And the steering wheel's turned a little bit, so let me...
Run that up, Turbo.
And another thing to think about too, I put a different spring in here because we were just kind of playing around with some stuff, and off camera I had some other eye-box springs that actually came off of the factory struts that we had on here, so it's got a little bit different spring in it, so I don't know what the height's going to be, but it'll be pretty close to what we were at the other day. Go slow.
Oh man, this is real life. Sick.
That's honestly like kind of perfect.
Little bit of camber. Yeah, pretty straight. That's sick, dude. Look at it, Ryan.
Heck yeah. Drift truck.
It looks gnarly.
Yeah, that's probably 5, I'd say. And that's barely the scope of what it can go.
That's sick, dude.
That is super sick.
Especially like, it's kind of involved, but it's kind of simple too,
Yeah,
I guess.
that took us, what, we've been out here for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours?
Maybe.
And we've had to deal with SD cards and dead batteries.
Yeah, man, been fighting it the whole time.
Yeah. We're going down here. It's getting so low I can't sit down here and look at it.
That's a good problem to have.
Yep. Just a second, let me get my lights situated here. So there you can see where we've added onto. And it looks like we've actually pushed the knuckle up some with that spacer being in there. We'll have to trim that down a little bit so we can get some good thread engagement on our lock nut on the lower. But, I mean, that just kind of goes to show you how much room we've got to work with up in there. And everything looks pretty good. Like, that looks pretty sturdy.
I think once you get it all boxed in, the control arm being like sturdy enough is not gonna be a problem.
Oh, no, not at all. Come sit in it. I want to see what it looks like when you sit in it. And I'm going to take my body parts out from underneath there just in case it gets silly and decides it wants to. Cool. Do that again. Yeah, right there. Do that some more. It's so close to getting the tie rod, but not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ow. Dude, it's perfect. It looks so tough. It has every bit of like 5 degrees.
It looks nasty, dude.
Yeah. Like, let me get a picture from back here so you can see it. It looks sick. Hell yeah. It's everything I've always wanted it to be at this very moment in time.
Look for clearance as I turn on the door.
Okay. The clearance back here and the fender well is good. Things have escalated kind of quickly. We decided to put the 326 power springs back in it because we are going to need it to be stiffer in the long run, and we want it to be lower. I don't think the other springs that I had on it are going to be able to give us the capabilities to go as low as we want to. This is it with not completely maxed out camber, but pretty daggum well close to it. And we still need to fiddle with the coilover a little bit because it's a little too low. It's kind of sitting really close to the door. But, I mean, that's insane. It looks absolutely ridiculous. I can't wait to get the rear lowered. Yeah, it's gonna look tough. Like, here's another view. This amount of camber, you would think it would put a lot of stress on that joint on the outside of it, but there's no deflection or anything like that. I know it's hard to see in the dark, but if you look, there's no deflection whatsoever with that heim joint there. It looks super good. There's our cool, and we're just barely touching the tie rod. So I think what we're going to do is do a heim joint on this one as well. We'll have to source some stuff for it. Hopefully it'll be pretty easy because it looks like we can just thread a heim joint in the end of the tie rod there and just do a flip kit, or not a flip kit on it, but like a drop kit for the tie rod, and that should get us away from there. And then running these 326 power springs should give us just enough spring rate to not hit any of this stuff. our tie rod will be nice and flat, and our lower control arm is decently flat. It's pitched upward just a little bit, but I think we got the makings of a pretty good setup here. And like Cody was mentioning earlier, the reason we moved the heim joint forward was to get the wheel centered in the wheel well. And it is pretty well doing that right there. As you go lower, it tends to tuck it backwards, but once we get it raised up just maybe a 1/16 to a 1/4 of an inch, it'll be perfect. This is what it looks like back here. It has an insane amount of camber right now. I like it. This truck's made to be ridiculous.
Yep.
Do you want to give him some steering?
Yeah. Check it out.
So I'll give you the front view.
That's actually all the steering we got right now, to the left.
To the left, yeah, the tie rod's so far out. Oh wow. We've got a pretty good amount that way. Is that lock?
Yeah, that's lock right there.
That's a lot better than we had the other day. I guess the geometry with it being lowered and having a little bit more camber has given us some of that sweep back.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's a lot better than it was the other day. That might be more than it was factory. I can see the face of the wheel from the front of the truck.
That's tough, dude.
That's gnarly. Heck yeah, dude. That is sick. This whole thing blows my mind every time we work on it. It gets a little bit more cooler and a little bit more cooler every time. And you can see we're kind of sitting on the tire a little bit. But we'll fix that. Another thing we could do to go a little bit lower as well is we could take and trim this lip here. Dude, you could roll that.
Really?
You could roll that flat. Yeah, I got my finger up behind it. So you could actually roll this lip up flat against this top portion here, and we would gain a little bit more, but that's, we're getting a little extreme there. But, I mean, as you can see, we still have clearance at the front of the wheel well, and everything up in there is clearing very well, so I think we're money. We just got to get those control arms finish welded, and the front should be pretty well done, except the tie rod, heim joint, and then hooking the brakes up.
Which is, I mean, nothing. The tie rod heim joint. In a perfect world, you can find a heim joint that's just going to screw onto your tie rod.
If anything, I can get online and order one.
Yeah.
We done all this. All this has been done by sourcing used parts from the van, parts from our buddy, you know, a couple buddies that just had some stuff laying around.
Turnbuckle from a
Big R.
Big R.
Yeah, a tractor turnbuckle has turned into a daggum lower control arm extender piece, adjustable control arm, control arm adjustable.
I'm not going to suggest you to do this to your LS400.
No, I would definitely I would definitely recommend a little bit nicer parts for your LS400, but I can literally pick this thing up from the back like.
And I mean, you could have used high dollar parts, high dollar heim joints and stuff if you wanted to, but like this is all just trial and error. We don't have anybody to go by to like see anybody else doing this, so we're just like using what we have.
Yeah.
If it works, then we might come back in, like we said, and build a nicer controller.
Yeah, build some tubular stuff.
Yeah, with better heims and, you know.
So we're back in the garage. Cody's over there working on the driver's side lower control arm, and I've got the other side taken apart. We're just mimicking the same actions we've done on the driver's side control arm. We kind of done one side at a time just to verify if everything was going to work. So we did the coilovers on one side and the control arm on one side, and we've got a pretty good solution for the tie rod that I'm not super worried about. So we've made it this far, so we're going to go ahead and knock out the lower control arm on the other side. Cody's over there working on cutting that right now.
Yeah, he is.
I pulled the factory knuckle back out of the driver's side, and now we are working on just getting that other side replicated and the coilover replicated. And while he's cutting everything up and prepping it, I think I'm going to pull the diff out. So that's the plan of action. Alright, so we got the diff out. This is where it used to be. I kind of wish I would have knew that we were going to two-wheel drive swap this truck, because I would have moved the engine further forward. But, oh well. Don't matter. Mid-engine, right?
Mid-engine, right?
Yeah, mid-engine. Mid-engine. So as you can see, I got the lower control arms on, welded up. Everything looks like it's gonna work good, but we need extended tie rods. So I have plans for that. This wheel over here is straight, whereas this one over here on the driver's side is not so straight. So we'll have to pick back up on that project soon. As of right now, we are currently getting ready for Riverside. I've got the door apart on this. I'm finally gonna put a door handle on it. My car got an oil change. Cody's got his G ready to go. All there is left to do is load the merch up and get on the road. So ready to go. All there is left to do is load the merch up and get on the road. So as you can tell, we're not at the house. I am editing on the go right now. It's been a little difficult with the laptop situation. It's not as strong as my computer, so bear with me here. Upload should be up on Saturday. If you're watching it, boom, it's Saturday. If you are here in Chattanooga and you've watched the video, you should definitely come by the booth. We've got a bunch new stuff coming, so that stuff should hit the website Monday. If you want something early and you're going to be at the show, come by the booth. We're going to be at the post meet. I don't know exactly where it's at the moment, but as soon as I find out, we're going to put it on the story. But we set up on Friday night here just a little bit earlier. We did a little raffle. We actually had a winner. Dude's super excited. I can't wait to post that. It's basically a Spicy Boy starter pack. We've got shirts. We got Spicy Boy Speed Shop shirts with the Trippy logo right here. And then we've also got stickers, we've got lanyards, we've got koozies, we've got hats. Pretty much anything you could want. If you are excited for that, be sure to hit the website on Monday morning. So this following Monday from the upload. And all that stuff should be live. If it's not, bear with me. It may be Tuesday, but I will definitely post on the Instagram to let you guys know when it drops, as I always do. Like I said, there'll be stickers, lanyards, koozies, shirts, hats, and we hope that you all enjoy them. They're pretty well made products, and we hope you all enjoy them as much as we do. We are stoked to be able to get you guys some merch. And everything that we get back out of the merch is going straight back into more merch. Hopefully we'll have some new designs, different colors, things like that. It might take us a little time, but we're going to push what we've got, and hopefully you enjoy it. And like I said, everything that comes out of the merch is going right back into merch or right back into the channel or funding these projects. And I just want to thank you guys, because you guys make it possible. We've done very, very well for our first time setting up a booth here on Friday night. So thank you very much, and make sure to stop by. We're going to start coming to events and setting up. But I'm going to get back to this, and I'll see you in the next one.